You have to give me permission.
Yes, I understand. Sorry. I'd moved the cursor off because it was like right on your nose. It was the only thing I could look at. So,
This little blinking arrow.
yes.
Or a
Yeah.
little hand. I have a little hand.
Oh,
You have a little
mine's
hand?
no, mine's still the arrow. It was just an arrow on your
Mm,
nose.
hand. Hi, everyone. I'm here with my friend Pete. We're going to talk about we don't know. Probably a lot about therapy because it's something we both love and are passionate about, and maybe some other stuff. We have 45 minutes or so. We'll just see where the conversation goes.
Sounds
So
good to me.
this is, I love the unpredictable. I think what I've found when I've had these conversations and even some of the podcasts that Noah and I are doing together, that we go in thinking, okay, we're going to just start talking about stuff. And that when I watch it back, it's organized. There's a
Mm.
theme to it. So I expect that there'll be a storyline to this, even if it feels random.
I think that's one great thing about talking with folks who are really striving to be authentic with themselves and others,
Mm-hmm.
um, is that there's always something that you're working on,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's always some kind of framework to the conversation.
Yep.
So, and I think especially being around you, being around Noah, being around others who are great healers, it's always something either somebody has gone through or is going through or knows they're going to have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
So
What are you going
it's
through right
nice.
now? Let me just start us off light.
We'll just hit record on Pete's therapy session. Um,
Well, what do you like loving to explore today? Let's make it
hmm,
lighter. Yeah.
okay. What am I loving to explore? Um, I would say one, I don't think I can make it any lighter if we're going to be authentic and real about it.
Great. I love being real.
Um, but I think the thing that I'm really exploring about myself right now is um, really how do I see myself and how do I see others? You know,
Mm,
you had put a post up, I think it was today, talking about different steps in a relationship
mm-hmm,
and really coming to a really good understanding of who a person is without judgment.
mm-hmm.
Um, and step number 4, I think it was, hit me. It
Look
was
it up. Yeah, tell me what it was. I don't
sorry.
know.
It was something about loving the whole person,
Mm,
all of them, and loving the parts that maybe don't sync up perfectly with
mm,
how you expected them to be. Um, I know in my own relationship that happens a lot, um, both ways. And luckily, I'm privileged enough to have a relationship through years of hard work where we can talk about like, hey, I have this expectation of you. Maybe I didn't verbalize it, but man, you're really not meeting it today. Um,
I love that.
but you know,
That you guys can
it's
do that. Wow.
it's um it's tough and it's
Mm-hmm,
not always that lighthearted. Um, and I don't take criticism very well, and
mm-hmm,
I don't want to speak for Bonnie Jane. So I'll just speak for me. I have a tough time taking criticism. I have a tough time not meeting the expectations that are placed on me
mm,
because of the way that I grew up and the
mm-hmm,
culture I grew up in.
mm-hmm.
I value myself based on the expectations that I and others place on me. But through lots of work and work done for me, I've been able to find that out and kind of steer my life based off of that, or based with that knowledge, rather.
Yeah.
So, getting better. But the thing I liked about number 4 most was that it also brought to mind, man, if I'm not doing that for myself, if I'm not loving those things about myself that aren't perfect, how am I going to do that to somebody else? So, I was
Yeah.
wondering if you had any thoughts on number 4 if number
Yeah,
4 is turned inward?
sure. Yes. Okay, so number 4 on the post that I made today on Facebook says, you begin to be able to see and accept the good, bad, and ugly in this person, all of it together. You no longer idolize nor demonize the person. So that means, for me, that meant like flipping out of this person is all bad or all good. It was a really like a light switch. Like everything, I like this person and like they're good, and I hate this person, they're terrible. It's like either pulling them towards you or pushing them away from you. So similarly, if you turn that inside, um, I guess it's a swing between arrogance and self-doubt.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, am I doubting everything about myself, or do I think I'm not wrong in this dynamic? Like I have it figured out. I'm the one who sees it clearly. That kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's tough because I know personally I swing more to the, man, I don't know anything. I
Mm,
really am not making it. Um,
yep.
but I also know I do have those days where I'm just like, no, everybody else is wrong. I've got this figured out. Like, don't talk to me. Um, do you see yourself doing that to Jamie?
Not anymore.
Good.
Yeah,
That's
not
awesome.
anymore. No, no. My relationship to myself is different now because, uh, well, first of all, I have to know what eyes I'm looking out of.
Hmm.
So if I'm shifting in and out of self-doubt and arrogance, I'm in my ego and in my mind perspective. And from that perspective, you're always going to have polarity. You're always going to have duality. You always are going to have like a spectrum of experience. Um, so if I find myself in that place, I try to take a step deeper inside so I can see that perspective and other people's perspectives simultaneously.
Wow, that's amazing to see
Mhm.
that you're able to hold that many perspectives at the same time.
Yeah, you just got to go inside. It's quite literal, actually.
Hmm.
Like it sounds like a metaphor, but it's quite literal. You actually literally have to pull back your awareness deeper so that you can see more of the picture
Yeah.
panning out.
No, it makes sense, and I think I'm starting to feel that going inside as somebody
Mhm.
who, um, my experience has always been just push outwards. If I have trauma, if I have issues, I need to push it out. There's
Mhm.
something outwardly wrong. Um, I need to cut something off, cut somebody off.
Yeah.
I need to stop doing this habit. There's something I'm bringing in from the outside that I just need to
Distance yourself
part ways
from.
with. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and it's tough because it becomes feelings too. If
Mm.
it's a feeling, then the feeling must be on the outside, and I need to part ways with the feeling. So,
Mhm.
but now, really starting to feel and be inside myself while terrifying at times, because it's a new space.
Yeah.
It's also kind of invigorating. Um, One thing I've always struggled with is consistency. I love working out. I have a great time with it, but I've always wanted to do it for outside reasons,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
and needed that, right? Like I needed the 21-day challenge or the
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 marathon or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
By the way, marathons suck. I don't understand why people want to do that. Like,
Mm,
but yeah. Now I feel like when I'm feeling inside my own person, it's so much more of an enjoyable experience.
mhm.
Like to the point where I can't even listen to a podcast when I work out because I won't remember it.
Mm, that's
And it's
awesome.
yeah,
Super
it's
cool.
getting there. But I'm excited and looking forward to the time where I can have those feelings and also have the ego and the id balanced to be able to look at them and understand where I'm coming from with inside myself. That's really cool to hear.
It's definitely, hmm. Yeah, in my journey, I had to like get to know the ego from inside the ego, like under
Mm.
that, in that costume of who is Jamie.
Yeah.
And I had to see the differences between the ego, Jamie, and other egos. Like that was a very important part of my healing. So growing up, I
When you
was
say,
enmeshed in my family.
yeah,
So my feelings, someone else's feelings, I'm not sure. I could never tell you who was feeling sad or anxious because I was feeling it all too. Makes
that's fair.
sense.
Yeah, completely.
Um, so then I had to learn how to, like you said, push away in the outside world, distance myself, um, almost like create a projection or pull out these things that I wanted to be separate from so that I could look at them and
Hmm.
analyze them and understand them. And how is, my mother different from me? And how is my father different from me? And how is Noah different from me? And like get to know the ego.
Yeah.
Like to me, that was an essential step. I think it's an essential step for everyone. And then once you get through that differentiation process of knowing who you are as an ego,
Hmm.
then like that's the therapists call it individuation.
Hmm.
Then you can withdraw those projections and you can look for the similarities amongst everyone and kind of pull back in those things that you pushed out. You can bring them back in, and that's what it sounds like you're in the process of, like being
Yeah.
in more interior.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I could definitely see myself on that road of that process.
Yeah, it's a really awesome place to be.
I mean, is it awesome in like, whoa, the Grand Canyon's awesome? Sure. Is it awesome in like, wow, that explosion's coming for me sometimes? Awesome. Yes. Like I might it's scary awesome.
Okay, this is, what our topic is going to be:
Uh
loving ourselves. This is our topic apparently.
our topic is what?
Loving ourselves, loving the
Oh,
self-awareness process, loving self-exploration. I love
okay.
this already.
Great.
um
Cool.
do you feel afraid that your ego is going to die, that who you are as an individuated person will die?
And I would say no to that. That doesn't feel like it's something that I'm scared of.
Mhm.
It's more of once I get to that place and I find out who Pete really is, just Pete alone, no structures, no people, no nothing.
Mm.
Am I going to like Pete? Am I going to be proud of Pete?
Mhm.
Is Pete going to be the same person that, you know, other people that I have contractual, social, loving relationships actually want to be around? Um,
Ah, yeah, got it.
so, yeah. Um, but it's also interesting too. I'm, as you know, I'm doing school right now, doing clinical mental health counseling, and one of my classes is development,
Mm.
human development, and it's interesting to see where along the human development line, you have adolescents trying on different
Mhm.
personas, trying to figure
Yes.
out who they are, and we see this all the time in
Yeah.
teenagers,
Yeah.
especially early preteens. It's just part of who we are as humans trying to go through it. And it's interesting to think about, like, okay, what trauma happened here, or what growth development pattern happened here that kind of skewed this, and I wasn't able to complete this part of my development. So it's like I said, it's interesting and terrifying, and um, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's moved away from, no, it's so terrifying, I don't want to do this, I don't want to look at who I'm going to be, to
Yeah,
I'm excited, but I'm scared shitless at the same time.
right.
So,
Spoiler.
uh-oh.
Underneath it all is only goodness. But I understand that fear, because I had it too, that underneath I would keep peeling back the layers and I would come upon something so dark and grotesque that I wouldn't be able to mentally cope with what was there. Like,
Yeah.
it's the fear of the darkness, it's the fear of the feminine,
Right.
that there is something unpleasant down there.
It's interesting that you use the words darkness and feminine and down there all as being the, I guess, the more true, the more authentic self.
It's not. But it's kind of like a tunnel that you move through. Some
Like
people
a
call it the
rebirthing
void.
almost.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Some people call it a void experience, a dark night. You got to go through this dark place, and in the process of doing that, you understand the darkness in a different way. So instead of being perceived as negative or scary or bad, like at its core bad, you
Right.
see, actually, there's light in this place. It appears dark, but it's more of a luminescent darkness.
I mean, it makes sense why patriarchal systems would very much fear this place for so long.
Yeah.
It's also makes sense why, as somebody who identifies as masculine, male, being open and being vulnerable is something that's socially and culturally tough to do.
Yeah.
But
I think it helps to have people lay out a map, though. Like, there's a number of books that have a map through this, so that if you read them, you know, okay, all of these people had the same fears as me, and they were able to move through it and came out the other side and into their self-realization.
so I would ask, just for the sake of asking, is that also relying on a guru, for lack of a better term, to get me through instead of relying on myself?
Well, I'm not living in the book. I'm just using I'm just using it as the way I use these books was kind of like, here's what to expect. These steps, you'll go, just kind of like the Facebook post that I made today. This is
Right.
what to expect along the way. Find yourself in these pages. Where are you? Are you at stage 4? Are you stage 5? Okay, know that stage 6, stage 7, stage 8, and stage 9 are possible, and you're moving in that direction.
Yeah.
And for me, that was help enough on the dark days when I was too afraid to keep going, that there were, and there are not very many resources like this, but that there were resources available that all of them agreed on the way it kind of unfolds, that I was able to say, okay, well, I know that that end result is possible, and these are the what it looks like to go through the rest of the phases. Okay, I'm going to keep going and just trust that I'm not going to go crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you, like me, have an awesome partner that's very grounding
That's true.
and helps us to go scary places.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Noah helps me a lot to go scary places. So does his amazing beard. No, I guess for me, I love the tools that you give. I love the tools that I have from intellectual spaces and books. it's more that I'm worried about that earlier version of myself that was always reaching outward
Mm-hmm.
for an anchor,
Yep.
you know. But like you said, if you have that vision of hope from somebody that said, "Hey, I've done this," you're not going to get lost in that darkness. It's just going to be
Mm-hmm.
scary for a time. And taking it at that value rather than, okay, this is my step by step Google directions.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
get
so
it.
easy. It's so easy to get wrapped up in it like that.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
get
I
it. Yes.
get where you're coming from.
And when I was in a place of well, this is how I got myself through that mental place of not being afraid to ask for help or
Yeah,
reach outside myself for help. I
right.
reminded myself of the ultimate truth, which is that nothing is outside of me. It
Hmm.
only appears to be outside of me. So if I'm getting help from Sadhguru or Brene Brown or whoever, they are a part of me that has wisdom that I don't perceive yet. And so I can use that wisdom that seems to be outside to inform really my mind. It's my
Hmm.
mind that's not informed. It's my mind that wants peace
Yeah. And I guess
and reassurance. Yeah.
that's a really great way to look at it, especially when trying to not distance yourself. If everything is that close that it's inside of you, it's not very far away.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that for me has unfolded over time. The last piece of this has to do with my physical body
Hmm.
and beginning to reminding myself that even if you go see an acupuncturist, you aren't um, abandoning yourself. It's not that I don't trust my body to heal or that I am looking outside of myself for a resource. It's that there's something going on that my brain doesn't have the ability to connect to right now, and seemingly going outside of myself is helpful.
It's so interesting to have the healing part, and I'm no expert on this, but having the healing part of the body and the healing part of the mind, it's almost like they have to agree to work together
Mm-hmm.
to get the top amount of healing. That's one thing that Bonnie and I have talked about a lot is,
Mm,
as I'm going into mental health therapy, um, and she deals so much with the body, at least on paper, that's
right.
what her role is.
Yeah.
It's interesting how much the agreement between those two means the world to a person's overall health, but
Right.
then also, how do you really heal the body without entrusting it to the hands of somebody else?
Yes.
I mean,
You're right. It's a
I,
very difficult dynamic. And that's one of the reasons why Bonnie and I do the breadth of work that we do.
mm-hmm,
We do body work, but we also do hypnotherapy work because we recognize that if the mind is not in alignment with the body, then the body can't feel better.
right.
The trick, the catch in that system that I have been caught in many times is thinking that if the mind is right, the body will just be perfect.
Mm, yeah, I could see how that could be an easy pitfall.
Yeah. Like when I first started doing cellular release therapy, I thought you just do these clearings and like the back pain goes away magically, like no problems,
Or the seizures.
or the seizures, or the diabetes, or whatever, whatever the things are. But
Yeah, but
that
I can't.
only resolves the mental and emotional karma for the condition, but there's physical karma. There's physical or biological or environmental stuff contributing that you also have to meet the needs of.
Well, and it's interesting because I feel like, especially if we're taking into just kind of the mental therapies, to me, before I really went on this journey of trying to heal myself, I always thought, like that the mental will just fix everything. And then you'll come
Yep.
out of it, you'll be this beautiful Hollywood person who the world just kind of bends to and love and lights.
Sure.
And it's like if I've got diabetes and I walk to the kitchen and I pound a bunch of sugar, unfortunately, I can't clear that with cellular release therapy or any other type of mental health therapy.
Right.
And I can't clear like the depressive thoughts that I'm going to have afterwards because I know me.
Yeah.
But I can at least have a lot of the blocks pulled away so that I can do it with intent.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do it honestly and honestly pick that piece of candy up and have a moment where I'm like, is this who I am? Is this what I want? And
Yeah.
maybe I do,
Yeah.
but
Maybe the
maybe I don't.
candy is just delicious. But you're right, it opens up choice for you. So it
Yeah.
takes away some of the unconscious patterns of like just doing the thing out of route or routine
Yeah.
and gives you more choice. But
Like,
seeing it from that approach where the mind fixes everything and makes your life like amazing, is really just a hierarchical masculine top down look. It's I don't want to call it patriarchal, but it's hierarchical, it's linear. It's
right.
linear in thought rather than including everything.
So if I might poke a spiritual bear there,
Do it.
um, going to a lot of these programs, listening to podcasts, things like that, it's sometimes tough to remember and to feel like being masculine is not a negative thing in the spiritual healing world.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because the word masculine, the word patriarchy,
Mm-hmm.
in one context, it carries a lot of negative things because it has done a lot of negative things, especially recently, and continues to.
Right.
And I want to support my partner and my sisters and people that I love. Um, but at the other part of loving myself, I also really like the fact that I'm a man.
Yeah.
And I like the energy that it brings.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, how does one balance the true masculinity of oneself while also not bringing down themselves, but empowering everyone of every gender
Mm.
and every amount of masculinity and femininity around them?
Well, I think one thing to do is to explain how the feminine and the masculine interact with one another truly versus how the mind perceives the masculine. So
Okay.
that was kind of what I was pointing at. Mentally, when we mentally think that the mind and emotional realm, the spiritual realm or ego, etc., is in charge of the body, that's a linear way of thinking, which is a more masculine, like divine masculine way of thinking. It sort of contains everything. Yeah, how do I explain this in a way that makes sense?
From what I understand, especially from reading Carl Jung as of
Mm-hmm.
late, the masculine is trying to make sense of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's trying to, when you say linear, what I hear and equate that with is, okay, if A happens, then B, then C,
Yes.
and this makes sense. We can work
Yep.
with this. We can make something out of it. We can
Mm-hmm.
manipulate it.
Mm-hmm.
This makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side, the feminine.
Well, the feminine is less about linear thinking and more, to me, I experience it more as circular, connective, maybe like multidimensional. and reaching out rather than following a predictable path. You're right about how spiritual circles sort of misunderstand the masculine. I think of the masculine as the space in between the feminine. So literally holding the feminine in place. It's to me, it's the space in between each breath, the space in between each thought, the space in between each sentence and movement. It's essential and it's present whether we like it or not. We need it. It's just hard sometimes to touch it and know it intimately until you have cultivated that space inside yourself, until you've practiced things like breath work, where you're watching the breath coming in, looking at the space and watching it go out, feeling the space, or different silent meditations where you're kind of steady and you're just watching the thoughts move or the feelings coming and going. I think of the masculine as that observer function that's deeper than the ego, the watcher, that when you're having a conversation with someone, the part of you that's observing and not making judgments, but just watching the whole thing go down. And we all have that. We just may or may not be conscious of that. So what's not to love about that? I mean, it's incredible.
They seem to go hand in hand too.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting to get to the end of a really deep conversation where you've tried to intellectualize, some big issue of life, and everybody in the room just kind of gets to, It's like, okay, well, there's kind of the feminine, like what is going to get us through the rest of the day if we can't make sense of all this?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I had a family member, as we were talking, it was with family for Thanksgiving. I had a family member who I complimented them on an outfit they were wearing. And she turned around, she said, "Pete, I've always really liked that you're in touch with your feminine side." And something just sat so wrong with that. And I was like, I know this is really nice, but I'm like, noticing the weave on a wool skirt is not that's not feminine.
No.
But it's so much easier to put a finger on as society and say, like, okay, that's feminine, that's masculine, but that's still masculine thinking, or that's still patriarchal thinking, rather.
Yeah, it's a belief that people hold inside that to notice beauty is gay. That it's gay, basically. I mean, that's the real truth. It's not you're in touch with your feminine side. It's that's a little gay.
Right. Which is tough because it's like, come on. There's so much more that this could be. Yeah.
Noticing beauty. Yeah, I don't know that I would ever put that in the bucket of feminine. I mean, to me, men and women both have there are like on the archetypal level. That's the lover archetype, which is masculine and feminine. It's the ability to appreciate your senses, beauty, richness, taste, texture, things that you see. I mean, it's part of everyone.
It's not just women and, non-heterosexual males going into museums and art shows. So
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. How unfortunate that we have that belief.
Yeah. But at the same time, there was a time I probably would have completely agreed with that too.
Yeah. Where does it come from? Like, where do you think it came from, this desire to notice the beauty?
Like within myself? to be completely honest, I think it came uh, from dissociating.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of folks who had a lot of trauma early on, and I've noticed this through my studies and through observation. I think a lot of folks who became hyper vigilant um, because of trauma early on, uh, part of that hypervigilance is hyper noticing.
Mm.
And when they're trying to connect with other people, they notice something, they like
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
and they express it because now they're trying to connect.
Mm.
And
Seems like a really useful coping strategy. I mean that
I,
literally. I think that's pretty helpful.
yeah, I think it
Mm-hmm.
is too, once it's used from a place of no longer saying, where's the next danger coming from?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Noah has this Jungian psychology has what's it called? The test where you can be an INFP and I forget
Yeah.
what that's called.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about, though.
Anyways, there are 4 letters: INFP, INTJ, blah blah blah. And whatever it's a way to categorize yourself as an introvert, extrovert, a feeling person, a sensing person, a perceiving person, a thinker, that kind of thing. I think he's an INFJ, which means he's introverted, intuitive, a feeling person, and a judging. That's what the J is.
Yeah.
So, and I am an INFP, which means instead of judging, I'm perceiving.
Hmm.
It's a little bit stereotypically masculine and stereotypically feminine, like the way that we kind of play out, which is kind of how we show up in the world. But
Yeah.
wherever your strengths are, then you'll have an area that is your weakest area.
Right.
And his is his, gosh, what the frick? Feeling and sensory. So when he
Hmm.
becomes a little unconscious, his ability to perceive the world decreases. He's like I become kind of hypervigilant and
Right.
kind of an overthinker, and
Same.
he's more like losing touch with where he's placed things and leaving cabinets open and forgetting things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so for him, like to become more connected to the moment, he would have to do what you've done, noticing the beauty in a cloth. For him, he's like taken up trumpet playing. So because that's
Hmm.
sound oriented and feeling the metal and getting himself back into his body.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that your coping strategy and that's also his remedy. That's not his coping strategy. His coping strategy is to check out and become less aware of his surroundings. But his remedy is to do just like you, to kind of get in there and be conscious and notice textures and things.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And that's interesting that he can kind of use those pathways that it's shown him to really um, self-soothe, for lack of a better term,
Mm-hmm.
and help him that way. Yeah, I I really like those Jungian tests for from what I've heard from folks who's taken it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like it's like um, astrological charts
Yeah.
for folks who channel, you know,
Yeah.
like um, I know some people live and die by that, and that's totally cool. It works for them, but I've always really liked them for nothing more than to say what's true about it, what's true about me,
Mm-hmm.
how do I see myself, and what can I bounce off of it, and that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean it's tough because and part of your earlier question of like are you worried about the ego being killed? I think sometimes our coping strategies have made us who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing I I think I worry sometimes about the old me dying, for lack of a better term, and being reborn.
Mm.
Is a lot of those coping strategies have got me through life, through relationships, you know, um, through jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, well, am I going to be as good if I completely heal when I walk out into the world? Um, so I, in a roundabout way, I think that kind of uh, is my answer to that question too.
Yeah. Yeah. But remembering that those coping strategies and the old way of being are just who we think we are. They're not actually
Yeah,
who we are. And we're on this process of trying to figure out who actually am I. So all
Mhm.
of that stuff is, it's sort of inevitable. It's going to change.
Right.
If you are on this, well, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, because there are some people in our lives who we see them and they're just unconscious and they go through their entire life essentially the same.
Yeah.
Like their
Oh yeah.
opinions don't change, their behaviors don't change, their patterns don't change. And we might show up in the relationship always hoping that something will be different this time and they'll have a magical new perspective. But for a lot of people in our lives, that's not in the cards.
Sure.
And so I ponder a lot, like, what is it that makes people like you and I um, so desperate? I mean, I felt desperate at times. Um,
Oh yeah.
so deeply longing for self-realization, for knowing who we are. What is it? Is it
This
grace? I mean, how?
so two things. One, I would say whenever I get those feelings, because I specifically have one friend who I love very much, but have a tough time being around.
Mm,
Um, and every time I get that thought of, man, I wish you would just see like this whole world that I see,
mm.
and I immediately have to remind myself, wow, dude, you're kind of being a spiritual dick right now. Like, I mean, like,
Yeah, we
I
think we're
mean,
better than.
right? Or like
Yeah.
our eyes are more open, or
Mhm,
we've tuned into something more special. Like
mhm,
maybe they've just got it figured out and they did it in 5 minutes, and the rest of their life is smooth sailing. I don't know,
mm,
but two, I've always had a tough time with the idea of grace,
mm,
um,
mhm,
because I don't know where that comes from personally. And I think everybody kind of has their own idea. But I would say, I personally think that our trauma makes us. And I think sometimes the folks who do not have the drive, the thirst for finding the next level of who they are, um, haven't gone through that trauma, or haven't found the need to work through that trauma, or maybe it hasn't risen to the top yet. I don't know.
mm,
Um, I also think I think too much, and 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 maybe it's a little bit narcissistic thinking about myself all the time. Like, how do I need to be better today? Like, well, there's
mm.
a whole world out there. Like, why am I not thinking about the world? Um,
Mm. Oh, I
but
can't yet. Yeah.
yeah, those are my thoughts on it. I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's a great thought.
It's
Like,
a good question, right? Yeah, I think I look around for um I think I'm clear enough and non-judgmental enough now to be
yeah,
able to see people and see the truth, see whether they're conscious or not.
hmm,
People are conscious on the spectrum.
Sure. Very true.
Conscious meaning like aware of what they're doing in each moment, aware
Right.
of their behaviors, aware of their thoughts, and aware of how they're interacting with the world.
Hmm.
And aware of other people, whether they're making someone comfortable or uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, and there are people that I work with or am friends with who seem to have like an inner fire that keeps pushing them. And every time I meet them, they're new. They're in some kind of new energy. They're perceiving the world in a new way.
Yeah.
Their thoughts are changing. Their behaviors are changing. They're becoming something, remembering something. I don't see it as becoming something new so much as remembering something deeper.
Yeah.
And so I don't see differences as far as trauma versus not trauma. Some people
Okay.
and how to categorize that. I wouldn't even know how to do that. I mean, I look at my childhood and think I had some trauma.
Yeah.
Not the kind of trauma that other people have experienced that I've worked with. Not, I mean, I had two parents who did a really good job being parents. They have their quirks, but they're loving, dependable, I'm securely attached person.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either.
We won't solve it in this conversation.
No. No, we'll let the feminine take over in the meantime.
It's a
Um,
mystery.
I I love having those kind of people in my life. And I
Mhm.
probably have three or four that it always feels like I'm on a circular path and I come back to the crossroads and meet them. And
Oh, neat.
it's grown so much that it's like it's a waypoint to meet up with that person. And it's not like I have to be texting them or friends on Facebook or anything like that. It's just that I know when I see that person again that we're both going to check in with each other. We're both going to see how we're doing. It's going to pick up with the same affection that it left off with,
Mm,
and we're going to go our separate ways again.
mm.
And that's kind of why that person's in my life, is just to be that that milepost, that waypoint.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a world where, well, for a while I felt this, I don't feel this way anymore. But in a world where it seems like people are moving through like robots a lot of times, it's nice to have those people that you can reconnect with every now and then to
Mm-hmm.
kind of have, a sense of, I'm not the only person who isn't living robotically,
I I get where you're coming from. I mean, it's tough when it's so easy to live robotically.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be so much easier to just not care about this, take enough pills where I wouldn't think, and move on with my life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
but here I am.
I remember, uh, I don't know, I guess it was 2015, 2016, feeling like, gosh, why did I start this?
Yeah,
Like, I just want it to go back to the way it was. Like,
yeah,
can I just become unconscious again? And then I can just go through my life and, there'll be some good times and there'll be some bad times. And I don't have to think about all these things and I don't have to be striving and always trying to, um, going through all of this pain and pulling up all this old crap. And yeah,
yeah.
but it's like an addiction.
I
Not
think,
quite, but you know what I mean.
yeah, but I think addiction is such a powerful word and has so much negativity behind it.
Mhm.
But I think everybody gets addicted to something,
Yep.
you know, and choosing what that's going to be, and consciously choosing it
Yep.
is such a powerful space to be in.
Yep.
And so if choosing to be addicted to one's betterments and one's growth and one's health, I mean, what better drug out there?
That's true. Yeah, in AA, they have this statement, I'm powerless over alcohol or something. I think it's step 2 or step 1 or something. And instead of, feeling like weak and passive in that,
Yeah.
I now recognize my ego is powerless in this awakening process, that it's like being carried down a river, supported on like a raft, like you're just being brought into this place of loving yourself and loving everyone else. And there's nothing you even have to do. You don't even have to do anything. You just have to be open, like keep opening your eyes, keep cleaning your eyes. I see it very much like washing your eyes repeatedly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and the more time I get mad at the river for moving, the further down the river I am and the more time I've wasted.
Yeah. But the river's carrying you anyway, so how can you waste time? I mean, can time even be wasted?
No, probably just my energy.
Can your energy even be wasted? If your energy is a never-ending resource.
Your energy is a never-ending resource?
Our energy.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because I've got 2 kids and I run out of energy pretty quick.
Well, that you're talking about physical energy.
Yeah. No, I
But
get it. I get what you're saying.
there's never going to be
Yeah.
an end of Pete. Never
Yeah.
going to get to the end of him.
That's true. There's hope in that. I guess that'll get me through the darkness. At least if I die, I'll be reborn somewhere else in more darkness.
I thought, I remember several very miserable days, just crying and sobbing and hugging Noah and being like, it's all die. I'm in the darkness and freaking out. And then I just realized I just took a step back from the ego. Like there's actually the ego's there. And if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be able to have this conversation.
Yeah.
It's just like a costume that I kind of step in and out of.
Yeah.
Or just know myself within, I guess, as I'm not really moving. Yeah. So it doesn't really die. It's like you hold it lightly in your hands rather than think it's you.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great feeling for it.
Mm-hmm. Like a little bird.
I can definitely say the times when I have stepped out of my ego, especially to make big choices, the choices happen fast and they happen correctly and they're scary because I think I can't think all the way through it. I can feel it. It's right.
Yep.
But my brain can't wrap around it.
Yes. I remember that first time I listened was actually when I got on the plane to fly to California to go to PDTR, the bodywork class. And I didn't know then why, but I knew going to that class was going to change my entire life. I just knew it. And I was scared, and it was a huge investment. I mean, we're talking $17,000 with travel and all the classes. But I did it anyway because I almost felt like I had no choice. Like I had to.
Yep.
Like you just have to. You're just being dragged in one direction. This perception of being dragged.
That
like unwillingly behind a car,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'm glad I did now, right?
Yeah. I mean, it changed the trajectory of your life. And that's not to say that your life was easy afterward. It's just that was the right path for Jamie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And my life was, well, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, it was the same thing when I joined the military. I had it made absolutely no sense at the time.
That's interesting.
I had other prospects. But I did it. It was the same thing with, ending my career and going to school, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing right now. Um, it felt so right and so truly me,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of it fell into place. That's not to say that there hasn't been challenges and sacrifice, um, but I felt it was right instead of thought it was right.
Hmm.
So,
I kind of want to ask the same question. I know there's no
which
answer
is,
to it. What is the quality within us that enables us to be able to make these brave choices?
hmm, is it us making the choice,
Right? I mean, I think that is the question. Who's
or
doing
are we being dragged
it?
down
Do
the
we even
river?
have a choice?
Right. Which the ancients would call fate, right?
Right.
Like there's
They,
literally somebody just up there stringing a line, tying knots.
hmm.
I don't know. I think that's a great metaphor for it, though. Being dragged.
Mhm. Well, yeah, that sense of resistance, right? That we're, if we're being dragged behind a car, we're literally bumping against the rocks in the road.
Right. But then I got to ask, is that car being driven by ourselves or another version of ourselves?
I mean, I don't know. I guess the most spiritual answer I can give you is it's being driven by the one self, but I'm not fully in it yet, so still cooking. I'm still cooking that one.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, I mean, I don't know how we would ever know these things truly, but like I said, I'll
No,
hold out
but
space for that.
I'm quite confident that that will make for some good thoughts and
Hmm.
probably some good poetry on your end.
Yep.
But yeah, I want to let that one roll around in the rock tumbler for a little bit.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, I think we did a good job talking about what we love.
I think so too. Thank you
Hmm.
for facilitating this. It was great.
Same. It was a lot. It was awesome. I'm gonna
Yeah,
push stop now, but I'm not. I'm just gonna
sounds
pause it. Bye,
sounds
everyone.
good.